Rise, ye tarnished. It's the Misadventureland Games Show. I'm Bobby, and I'm here with Justin.
Oh, hi there.
Hello.
How are you, good sir?
How are you doing?
Stressed. But what else is new in the life of parenthood?
Oh, no. Nothing. Nothing at all is new. With this life. Here we go. It's been a while. It's been at least it's been a little
Yes.
a little over a month, I think, because
Yes.
Elden Ring was out the last time we podcasted. I had begun playing it, you had not. Last time we did this show.
That's a true story.
And in that time frame, since we did the last show, we have both finished it.
Yes.
To the detriment of our mental health. We have no more Elden Ring to play. Gone are my plans every evening and every spare moment I had. Now I have to figure out, what am I supposed to do now with my gaming life?
Where do I go in life?
Where do I go?
I have no purpose any longer.
My purpose is I'm working on an Elden Ring lore video. So I've got that going on. We've got Wayfinders that will, once Jake of Planet Redbeard finishes the game, we'll be doing a big, long, deep dive discussion about the game, kind of, going beat by beat, going area to area, and talking very in depth about all these little things. But we will talk about it tonight. Get into it. If you guys are listening on your podcasting platform of choice, we do this live now monthly over at misadventure.land. You can see the video version there. If you do check that out, or if you're watching us live, please remember to like, subscribe, ring that bell, and share, and make sure you rate us on your podcast platform of choice. I think you can rate us with stars on Spotify, and of course, reviews are always welcome on Apple Podcasts. That's like the biggest and best way to get the show seen. But what are we going to talk about tonight, Justin? We're going to talk about Elden Ring, like I mentioned. You got a Steam Deck. So I have
a Steam Deck.
We have that to talk about. People can't see it, I don't think, because on the video, but your arm's in a sling. It's like below
brace.
It's like just below the camera enough that you can just barely see the very top of it.
Yes.
So we got that to talk about if you want. And
Sure.
And then I know you've been playing a little bit of Tunic, but really in order to finish Elden Ring, it's basically been the only thing we've been playing for a month and a half. So
there is another game that I've played just over 7 hours of.
On your Steam Deck, right?
On my Steam Deck, which we'll get to.
Yes, a game that really shows off the amazing power within that small machine. Something that's like a showpiece. For you go, how can you possibly play that? How can you possibly play this on such a little of a machine? That game is Vampire Survivors, which Justin will be talking about a little bit later on. And I mean, here's the thing: we kind of decided, just I don't know if we took this on the show or not. We're not going to talk a lot about news on this show because we're only doing it monthly, so it's like feels kind of anticlimactic to talk about news that's going on. To give you a snapshot. Elon Musk said he wants to buy Twitter, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And people think that Sony bought Kojima Productions because they put an image of Death Stranding in their PlayStation Studios banner on a website. That's where we're at right now with news as of today.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
we don't talk about news on this show.
We don't talk about news on this show unless somebody in the chat or on our Discord wants us to answer a question specifically about something newsworthy, and we will absolutely do that, of course. So if you have any questions, leave them in the chat, and we will absolutely answer them. Should we talk about Elden Ring, Justin?
Yeah,
we should talk about Elden Ring. We should talk a little bit on this video game podcast about the biggest video game that's come out this year.
It's come out, it feels like, in multiple years.
Yes, absolutely. So last time we podcasted, I think I was like 10 or so hours in. I don't think I'd beaten Margit yet when last we podcasted. So I've been to the game. It took me about 102, 103 hours. I think I was like level 165. Now Justin will tell you his absolutely bananas numbers for the playtime and level.
I played for 82 hours and I was level 100.
I want
76.
176.
No, it was higher.
Yeah, it was higher than
it was
that.
Like I'll say at least 180.
Okay.
I thought I was in the 180s, but I lost count. I've
Um,
leveled up a couple of times since then.
I had, and I kid you not, I had multiple people text me and go, what? What is going on with Justin? Did Justin like just farm a bunch or something?
No.
And I said,
I
no,
have farmed not once.
he did not. Just insane. That's a crazy level to hour count.
Now I want to know who texted you. It had to be you. It had to be you. What's up, darling? Come talk to me. We'll talk.
But so we both finished it, and we did. Well, I say we didn't do everything. We did most of everything, and I think we both did all of the major, at least all of the major stuff you could probably do. We did. Obviously, there's multiple endings to the game. People don't know this, so you can't unless you do some save scumming, like some non-intentional save maneuvers in order to get it. You can't get all the endings in one. It was Cody.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it as we talk.
Multiple endings, and you can't do all the endings. Like a lot of their games, you can't do all their endings in one shot. You would have to like back up your save and do it, or play it multiple times. So we will if we talk about anything deeply spoiler, we'll obviously do that at the end of this discussion, and we'll clearly mark it off. But it's been a month and a half. Justin, you hadn't even started it last time we podcasted. So
No.
Why don't you give me your kind of like overall feelings now that you're done with the game, and how you feel about the game overall? And we know sort of your feelings about From Software games. So does this transcend those thoughts? Is it right in line? How are you feeling?
It definitely transcended my thoughts on the From series as a whole. I don't think the game is perfect. There are things about it that I think are bad with a capital B. But those things are very far and few between. And the things that are great about this game are exceedingly wonderful to the point of, we have these great big open world debates all the time. And this game is one of the best open world games of all time. It is something. It is something to behold. Masterful in areas. I feel like it, a lot of the issues I have with From games deal with like the difficulty and the grind to be able to surmount some hurdles. And this game, although definitely not easy, definitely makes it easier for you to find progress and then climb over those obstacles that would in other games really give you a roadblock. And unless you are just very patient with being roadblocked, you're going to get stuck. And in this game, I don't ever I never got stuck once. Like if there was a couple of bosses that I was banging my head against for a good half hour, much to the chagrin of both Bobby and Andy in chat, who just told me to move on and do something else. But I was like, no, I'm right there. I'm right there. And eventually I would get them. But there were tons of times where I came up a boss and it was just like, oh, I'm not ready for this yet. Let me go do something else and go off and go do something else for 25 hours and then come back. It was just a great game. Front to back, a great game.
Let me ask you, the stuff that you don't like, the bad stuff you're mentioning, is that stuff that is kind of in the From sort of like formula, or from like milieu, like whether it be UI or whether it be like things that they've done before that have bothered you that just seem to have carried over here, or are they like new specific problems to Elden Ring?
I think it's a lot of problems that From has had in the past. I think the UI is just hot garbage. It's not a good UI. I played the game for 86 hours and I still, towards the end, I was finally getting an understanding of, with your help, of what all this stuff is supposed to mean. I am of the mindset that game, new to this game more than any others, just because there are so many different paths with characters that you could go down. I am of the mind that they really did need some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for
like
here?
A quest log or something you're talking about?
Not like a quest log even, just maybe like a character page where I could keep up with the characters that I met. I feel like this is like a larger discussion for us to have about the idea of keeping, some people really enjoyed keeping notes, like handwritten
Yeah.
notes about this game.
Yeah.
And that is not something that I think is good at all. Like if your game, if for you to really be able to pursue a quest down the rabbit hole, being a almost 40-year-old man with children and a full-time job, there is no way I could keep all that stuff in my head of
Right.
who's here, where am I supposed to go next. I would have to like physically write it down. And if I have to physically write something down, I shouldn't have to do that. There should be like a log in the game where I could go back to and be like, all right, now where on earth am I supposed to go next? Like what was the hints that I was supposed to get?
So, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I guess the one thing I wish was that there was more explanation of was sometimes there's like, let me like access older dialogue with a NPC that I have spoken with, and like and so I can refresh my memory on something that they said. Like that's something that I wish
that would work,
existed.
That would work too.
Because there were times where I was like, I was pretty good about taking, and I took very light notes, like just like a name. If somebody said a name or like an area, I would like write it down really quick, just so I would like it would keep in my head. And when I got to that place, I would find it. I would remember to at least go looking for it. But there are times like when you talk to like, there's this one guy in the the round table hold, which is like the hub world of this game, who sits behind like a table, and he'll tell you like, hey, he's like, hey, bring me information and I'll give you rewards. But sometimes he'll tell you some information about where somebody is or where to look for a character, and some of that stays with him the entire time, but a couple of the early ones don't. So if you ask him and then you get to the point where you've exhausted your conversation options, he just won't talk to you anymore. Be like, oh, come see me later, or whatever. The one thing I'll say about all that is just that I think you can completely play this game, right, just even without paying attention to any character quests or any side stuff, as far as like paying attention to like the order you're supposed to do it in, or where you're supposed to go, or what you're supposed to do. You'll naturally run into these people all the time, just if you're naturally progressing through the story a bunch of the time, but or the world and you're exploring. But I don't think it really affects like your overall enjoyment of the game if you miss some of that stuff. And that's it doesn't really usually hide behind it any sort of like major like items and stuff that you are absolutely essential to progressing and beating the game, right? There are items you can get that definitely help, or that will like, oh, I'm doing this build, so if I have this item, this would really help this build. But I think you could probably play the game from beginning to end and not engage deeply with any of those side quests or character quests, and pretty much be okay as long as you did like a few of them, which I think are much more like self-explanatory, I would say.
Yeah. So Bobby can tell you is I missed a lot of the side quests and the characters, because at one point somebody told me something and I didn't write it down and I just lost it. Like the game is so big.
It is.
And I'm talking about, this might be the biggest game I've ever played, just in size and scope. So, it's really easy for me to get distracted when playing a game in the first place. Mm-hmm. And even if there are quest markers, sometimes I forget about doing things. So when there's nothing and it's just like, oh, this person's mentioned something, I have no idea what it means because you're not supposed to yet.
Yeah.
I've completely had forgotten about things for 35 hours and was just like, oh yeah, where was that person? I have no clue. Now, From realized this, and while we were playing, added in location markers for the people that you were talking to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we first started playing, there wasn't even that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by no means do I think that there should be quest markers on the screen. I'm not talking about anything like that. I think the game is kind of perfect the way that it is. Let me hear what the person's having to say and then go to that place if I'm interested in it. Mm-hmm. I just wanted there to be a place where there is something where I could either repeat the dialogue or see like, what is it? What's the Wolfman's name? Blythe. Spelled
like Blade, but Blythe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah. I would love to just be able to have a character sheet with him on it and like kind of his story so far.
Yeah.
And then like that's it. I've seen other games do this. This would be perfect for that game because the lore is so deep. You can't tell me if you were like flipping through and you got to like a compendium of here's your jar man, here's Blythe, here's Ron, like like and then like here's a picture of the art and like it fills in as you play. Like I met this person here and they had this to say and this like it would add to the game, not detract from it. And then it's still up to you to go out and find these things in the world. It's just like keeping a log for you instead of you having to keep that log for yourself.
Yeah.
That was like my main complaint with the game because I missed so much.
Yeah.
There are so many quests where it was just like, well, I didn't see this. I didn't see this. I didn't see this. And I put in 87 hours. I saw everything there was in the game. I just somehow missed all the people.
Yeah. There was a time where at the very beginning, like there's an NPC that you meet pretty early on in the first big what they call legacy dungeon, the Stormville Castle, and Andy and I were talking about this NPC, and Justin's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "The NPC you meet in that room near the boss." He's like, "I never went in that room," and I was like, "Okay, well then they're probably in the hold now. He's not here." And then like that turned out to be a glitch that they didn't, that when you progress the story, they didn't move on and they fixed that in one of the patches. But we were just like, how did you not? Because we're like, because it happened because you got to another place where that NPC was supposed to show up. And we were like, oh, you got to go talk to that person. And you were like, what are you talking about? And we're like, stop at the fire on the way up. And you were like, I see a fire here and there's a bunch of notes around where a person might be, but there's no person here.
That was frustrating because that was just a pure glitch that the person was supposed to be there and move and did not for me.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a frustration, but there were so many characters where it was just like, remember the one that was over by, I forget. Yeah. It's over by the lakes. Like there is, a very large man that you could talk to.
Yeah. Oh God. That was the funniest one of them all.
They were like, didn't you talk to this person? And I'm like, what person? And they're like, do you have this site of grace? And I said, yes, the big blacksmith, Andy says. And I'm like, yeah. Like, how did you not see him? He's literally to the left of the bonfire. He's about 2 stories tall.
Yeah.
But the second you come through this bonfire, there are things happening in the world that just completely took my attention. And there weren't small things, but it was like, ooh, that's cool. I'm going right over there, and just did not ever look a little bit to my left and missed this blacksmith for, I don't know, 40 hours.
Yeah. Because you were like, oh, I need these smithing stones. I was like, oh, you can just go buy them from the guy. And someone was like, what guy? E.G. So, I mean, and just tell you, it is like a giant, like literally a giant wearing a mirrored helmet, reading a book, like sitting right next to the site of grace, and Justin did not see him. And Cody says something about the log of character stuff that's not usually something FromSoft does, and I think that like what's interesting about that conversation, I think it's an interesting conversation to have about this game in particular, because there are plenty of things in this game where I think From looked at what they usually do, and then looked at the type of game they were making, and decided where those things still belonged and what things to streamline to make the experience, give you the experience they wanted. Now you can say like, okay, maybe they don't want, maybe part of it is like, they don't want you to have a clear idea of where every character is and where every character story is, because they want you to piece it together. They want you to have a lot of questions. They want the community, like, because a big part of these games, right, is like, people talking to each other and saying like, did you see this thing? No, I didn't see this thing. Go over here. Like we're talking about just when we talked about it, right? And also like the online community is a huge aspect of these games, right? The whole like kind of piecing it together like a puzzle. And so maybe they don't want you to have that experience, whether you enjoy that or not, because there are other things that they completely streamline to the point where like, I'm like, these things that From Software did, who are usually notoriously difficult on their players, this stuff should be in every open world game because it would make them so much more enjoyable. I'll say
that even with the community coming together to tackle quests, like I don't think that having a log of just the characters that you've met would change that, because some of these quests are highly involved and require amount of sleuthing that, like, being like, what did this character say for me to do again? that's only like step 1 of a 15-step quest.
Yeah.
Just to get to step 2 of the quests.
Yeah.
And you have to do like 6 different things that make absolutely no sense.
Yeah. And I would say, I think you think you were very clear about what you said, but just Justin's not saying like, tell me where to go next. He's just saying like, tell me what the characters have said previously so I can reread it, which I think, I don't think is a crazy ask. I think, but like, what's crazy is like, I'd say this is not spoiling anything at all. One of the biggest side quests in the entire game is Ranni's. It's like the biggest side quest in the game, right? It has the most steps. It's the most involved. It has the most effect on the story that you're kind of your character's story progressing through the game. Whoever the person was who first figured out how to do that quest without a guide, they're amazing. Amazing. Like the biggest direction that you get is usually like, hey, head to like this area and then start walking. Like, that's like kind of like the direction they usually give you. Like she'll say like, go get this item for me, but she gives you very little direction on where that item is. She'll give you some clues, right? So like, so like it's pretty impressive, right? That people figure that stuff out. But stuff like I mentioned before, stuff that From did in this that I think other companies and other developers can learn from is the absolute no restriction on fast traveling other than when you're like in the middle of an underground dungeon is amazing. Like the fact that you don't have to be at a site of grace to fast travel and you can travel to any site of grace you've been to at any point. Like that is amazing. Like for instance, like I haven't even started playing Forbidden West, but Horizon Zero Dawn, like first of all, like it doesn't unlock till later, and then you have to have like an item that you use to expend to fast travel. They try to gate you from fast traveling because they want you to spend the time walking in between things, and the confidence of From to be like, no, once you've walked from there to there, you don't have to walk it again. Like we want you to have that experience of getting from here to there, but once you go from here to there, it's your choice whether or not you want to go from here to there again. You know what I mean? Like giving me that choice as a player is like huge. And I love that about it. I think like, there was another thing I was trying to think of. I had in my head and now I can't remember what it was, but like that is one of the biggest things for me is being able to fast travel. It made traversing the world, this huge world that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, with the map constantly trolling you, thinking that like, oh, you think you know when this world ends, huh? Well, guess what? Here's something else. Here's a whole other world for you to have to, to look at. The fact that they create a system where you are able to zip around wherever you want is great. The other part of it is not in every corner doesn't have something, right? Not every corner of the game has something, but enough places in the game that you're going to explore have something substantial that it makes you want to explore and doesn't make not finding something feel frustrating because 9 times out of 10 you're going to find a cave or an item or a special enemy or an NPC or something. When you explore, it really rewards you exploring its world and taking chances. Justin, what were you going to say?
I was going to agree with this point. The last game I feel that grabbed me in this particular way, where I did not care about progressing the quest at certain points, was Skyrim. I think Breath of the Wild did it too, in a way. Like I enjoyed walking around Breath of the Wild's world, but the thing about walking around that world is, for the most part, you're only going until you find another dungeon, or I forget what they call them in
shrines.
The shrines.
Yeah.
And, in the shrine, you're basically coming out with a heart or stamina, an upgrade to your heart or your stamina. In this game, every dungeon has the ability to drop something that might change the game for you. Mm-hmm. Be a weapon, be a spirit ash, be an incantation. And like, I was playing a melee class and Bobby was playing a mage to start with. So I was getting a ton of incantations and spells and all sorts of things for magic that I can't use yet, or I couldn't use yet. And Bobby was getting a bunch of melee stuff that he wasn't using.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about the game is like, everywhere you went, there was something to be seen and to do. And I think towards the end of the game, a lot of the little mini dungeons start kind of like repeating themselves, and like they don't feel as meaningful as they did at the start. But there were still ones that I was in second area to last, where I was like going there looking for certain things that were going to change my entire play style.
Yeah.
And at that point in the game, you're looking for things like very specific things, like Bobby had mentioned before. Like, look, I'm doing a bleed build. Like that was my character. I chose samurai, so I got a katana right off the bat, which induced bleed. And I was like, you know what? That's how I'm going to play this game. Apparently, it's the most broken way to play the game in the world. So I happened to just choose correctly. But, you know, there is a weapon that you find later in the game called Rivers of Blood that just absolutely annihilates. And it kind of changed the way that I played. But once I had it, I was like, well, I need a couple of different talismans to really increase what this thing does. And so I went hunting for them. And like some of those items are hidden not in like major places, but like little caves to the side, or like little like surprises that are around all the corners. So like every time I got into a new place, it was just like, all right, well, the Site of Grace is telling me I should go this way. I'm going in the other. And like I have not had a game. I think 2 games have ever done that to me. One is Skyrim, and, you know, I'll say Fallout as well. And the other is Breath of the Wild. Yeah. So I just was purposely avoiding doing the main quest because it was just like, I need to see what's out there in the world. I need to go find something special, because something special is always lurking right around the corner. And if it isn't, it's not there. You're like, all right, well, it's going to be around the next one. And yep, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I will say too, I think I've always very much enjoyed the way their games look. Like, I think like Bloodborne has a great art style and some really like stunning stuff about it. Dark Souls 3 also has that too. And like, even going back to the older games, even though they're out of date now and look kind of simpler. But they really stepped up their like Vista skybox game in this, like, you're every time you go go to a new area, or you come around a corner, like to reveal like a major part of that area. It's just like, there were so many. I took so many pictures with my like on the console, like of me standing in places, because like, oh my god, look at this. Like when you get to Evil Hogwarts in the lake region, I'm like, oh, it's stunning. When you get to like the mountaintop of the giants, when you get to Lendel, the royal capital, when all these places, like. There's a very late game. It's like the last new area you go to, and you can access it earlier by like one of these portals. When I got to that place, I was like, I don't even know what the fuck this game is. Like, where is this? I haven't seen anything that even resembles this even a little bit anywhere else, you know? And the fact that the game is still throwing those surprises at you, constantly, is the thing that's the thing that is great. And that stuff, like there are times in the game where you get to a place and you have to enter a thing, and it takes you to a place. It happens a couple of times, and no other game are you like, okay, like, yeah, I'll get into this, and it will take me on this mystery ride, and that I found down this path I didn't even have to go down, like this side path out of this place, and now, oh my god, I'm in a totally new area, you know? And there's
and all of the areas are not like, all right, well, they took me to this side area, it's probably really small. Oh no, they built a map underneath the map.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the game, just like every time I thought like the game is reaching its limits on size, right?
Yeah.
Like, you enter a sewer system at one point and you're like, this is probably going to be really tight. Oh my god. And I got lost in there for like 2 hours. Like, just, I mean, what From does really well is they have always done just really great map design, right?
Yeah.
Like shortcuts that will take you back and, back to the same place that you were. And you're always like, oh, awesome, I just opened up this shortcut. So how do you do that in an open world game? And the answer is, like, in some areas you enter like a more traditional Dark Souls-ish level. Like, you enter a castle, that castle is going to have shortcuts that are going to look very familiar.
Yes. Yeah.
But what's really cool is when you're in the open world and you visit certain areas, sometimes what happens is you return to that area from a completely different point of view. You might be at a higher elevation and look down and be like, holy shit, I was down there 30 hours ago fighting a boss. I'm back here. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Just like really great stuff. I don't want to for our discussion today, I don't want to get into like heavy spoilers. I don't really
No,
want to talk about
no.
the endings that we went down. I don't want to talk about anything. There is one thing I want to bring up though, and then
Okay.
maybe we could talk about how we kind of approach the game. It's a conversation that you and I had the day after I beat the game, and you had asked me if I had encountered this optional boss that I did not even know was there.
Mm-hmm.
And that Bobby had mentioned this is in this like basically last area of the game, and he's like, "Oh, there's a optional boss there," and I was like, "Where?" Because I explored the place pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And he told me the name, like looked up the name of the boss, and I was like, "How do you find this thing?" And the answer to finding it is you literally walk off the stage at some point. Like,
yeah.
There is nothing, and it's one of the, I think, the coolest boss fights in the entire game. And this is the confidence that I think other developers need to have. Is the confidence that From has here, is that there are multiple bosses that you have, unless you are poking at every inch of this world, you will not see.
Yeah.
And this particular boss, the one that I'm mentioning, like, unless you knew to look for it, you would walk right past it. You literally have to walk off of an edge and find another edge to land on. There is no hint that it's there.
Yeah.
And from there, you have to go down a ways, and then you enter this like spot, and then there'll be a marker, and you have to read what the marker says and do what the marker says, and it will teleport you to this completely optional boss fight, which kicks ass.
Yeah, it does kick ass.
Like, just the I mean, like, to have, like, what normally would happen, I would assume, at a developer is like, man, this boss fight's awesome. We have to make sure that everybody sees this.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that everybody takes a look at this art design and these concepts that we had thrown out there, and everybody has to see and appreciate this. And From goes, 2 out of 10 people will find this.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's fine. More games need that type of stuff.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that point. 100%.
100%.
And I'll just say in general, like, again, we'll get all of the specific of all this stuff when we on Wayfinders, when we really dig into the game and go place by place. But like Andy mentions, the general boss, the Radon is his name. The scope and spectacle of that boss fight is just, it's one of the most impressive boss fights I've seen in any game ever. Like, just from a pure visual and just bombast standpoint, like the shit you have to do in that, and like the arena that it's in, and the things you can do in that boss fight, like it kind of breaks its own rules in that boss fight in some ways, what it allows you to do, which I think is really, really cool. And there's a bunch of them too. There's another boss, another optional. Like, a lot of the bosses are technically optional. You really only have to beat like 2 of the main bosses in like the main like couple of first areas that you're in before you can progress to like the second part of the game. And there's like this boss in a place called Volcano Manor. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but like you don't have to do that boss. You don't even have to go to that area if you don't want to. Nope. And there is something that happens in that boss fight that is insane, like just insane. Like what From is doing constantly in these major, big, huge boss fights, including the last boss, which I think is like tough, but ridiculous, but tough, but fair, in many ways. And like, it's stunning. And they do stuff with scale. That's another thing too. They do stuff with scale on a constant basis that is just above, like what other developers even try to do and a lot of times. And look, is the game, like, if you put this game up against Horizon Forbidden West will beat it as far as like pure visual fidelity, right? The like amount of probably the lighting, the foliage, all the little details that make games graphically amazing. It doesn't win against those games that are like that. But what it does win against is that it makes you want the world is engaging in its visual style and in its gameplay stuff, in all of its aesthetics. It feels like a piece, it feels like a world, and it makes you want to explore it. And I think that is the thing that is so amazing about it, and which has left me with such a hole in my gaming life now, because I'm like, what am I started a second character last night, and I was like, maybe I'll just play a little strength and see what happens. and like I just was like not having the patience to go through this early game struggles again. Like now I gotta, like I can't just, I can't. I'm not doing all of the damage that I was doing before, and it's like a little bit frustrating. And then like I don't want a new game plus because I want to be able to help Andy, who's still playing for the game, or just play with him, because sometimes we have a good time goofing off and running through areas together. And also, if they do DLC, which they usually do in all their games, like I want to have a character that's ready for it, and I don't want a character that's like, oh, I got to go back and now I got to play 20 hours of New Game Plus before I can reach the area, the DLC area or whatever. Yeah. But so yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I'm done. You go ahead.
So somebody was asking before how I got to my level cap, like how I did it. And you and I have had this conversation a bunch of times because we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So I got the medallion or that gives you more runes for killing enemies. And I kept that on from the moment I got it. Bobby, actually, I think the only we came together, you and me once, and you, me, and Andy. We helped Andy get through a couple of areas, but you came into my world once because I wanted that item, and so we went into Khalid, and I got that item. I probably got it maybe 10 hours before I should have had it, but I always just kept it on. I always just kept it on, and I don't lose runes ever.
No. When he loses any runes, he gets very upset. It doesn't even matter if it's if it's half a level, a fifth of a level. Like, I just lost those 5,000 runes, and I'm like, how many runes does it take you to level up? You're like 40,000, and I'm like, Justin.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, I stopped caring as much. But at that point, by the time I stopped caring, I was level 150.
Yeah.
I lost 80,000 in one dungeon once because I died at the boss and was just like, all right, well, I'm going to get the boss this time. I saw all the moves. I nearly had him killed, and I went in there with 2 health files. And as I was running back to the boss, I somehow tripped a trap that I didn't hit the first time. And the trap has 3 different landing areas for you to hit on the way down, and I somehow missed all of them, and I lost 80,000 runes. But I just, if there was a boss that I was on and I had 30,000 runes in there, I wouldn't go into the boss room. I wouldn't risk losing the runes. So I would go, I would start using my little orbs that would give me runes, and I would level up before the fight. And then if I went in there and I lost runes, I would equip one of the branches that on death I would get the runes back, and then I would go do something else. I think overall I might have lost 90,000 runes, and it was 80 of it in one go. So yeah, that's how I leveled up so much. Is just I refuse to lose those freaking runes.
It's so funny. For me, it's exactly the opposite. I'm just I'm not going back there right now. Those runes are gone. If I come back here and they're still, I haven't died and they're still there, great, I'll grab them. But for the most part, it was okay. Or I would run into an area and to grab an item, and if I would die on the way out, if it was a really shitty area, I would just be I'm not going back there. And I would just leave the runes on the ground.
I would go back there. I would I would do it. And for a while I was hoarding those runes in my inventory. I had about 50 or 60 of them, all different, I had 4 different ones that gave me 50 or 60,000 each. I was I guess I'll start using these now. And then once I started using them, I really started using them a lot. But yeah, for me, and everybody knows the way I feel about From games. I have made that very clear over the years. And I think that this game just transcends those feelings. I can't imagine From ever doing anything smaller than this again, and I'm sure they will. But I don't know if it would work for me. I loved so much just exploring the world and feeling powerful. The game lets you feel powerful.
Yes.
In any boss fight I had, there weren't many boss fights I went into, and I was just holy shit, how the fuck am I going to do this? There were a couple where I went in and I was just man, this is difficult. This is a difficult fight, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get around it. And the answer was either I got good and really studied the movements of the boss or whatever and just got better at it, or I was just not yet, not doing this. There were plenty of bosses that where my particular build was just you need to be over leveled to do this fight with this type of builds. Gargoyles and bleed are not friends. So any gargoyle boss I came across, every time I would hit them with my sword, it would just pretty much bounce back at me. And I was like, well, this isn't good. That gargoyle fight by the waterfall, that is all I'll say, is maybe the best, not the best fight in the game, but when we talk with Jake, I'm going to talk a lot about that fight because it is stuck with me to this day. How much that fight drove me crazy.
I'm very excited when we get to that Wayfinders to talk about that boss, that optional, incredibly hard boss in that incredibly hard area, and get into that. But what my final thing I'll say about Elden Ring is that, and Andy mentioned that he hated From games before this. We had to convince Andy to buy it and play it. And
we both had to really get in there and be like, Andy, you will love this game if you play it. And I don't know.
But he's loving it. But and everyone needs like they're in. Everyone needs like the one that gets them into it, or that breaks, kind of cracks the code. But what I think, as someone who very much likes From's games and can get frustrated by them, don't get me wrong, get very frustrated by them, but I like the parts that come along with the frustration. That's what I'll say. The thing that this game does is it allows space for the things that have always been in From Software's games, the variants of the Dark Souls games, at least. Bloodborne and Sekiro are different animals. The variants of play style, the variants of builds, the secrets, the architecture, the weird shortcuts, the chance taking to find a cool item, that like, holy shit, did you guys do that thing? But by giving you space, both actual physical space and also just like space as far as like kind of giving it people more of an on-ramp to get into it, it allowed more people to discover that stuff and to find their way into that stuff and not feel the usual pressure that From games put on people to progress, or the pressure that their structure makes people put on themselves, right? Like there's something about the way From games are structured, the traditional ones, that make you feel like if I'm not progressing, like I'm fucking up. You know what I mean? And this game gives you the space and gives you the freedom to say to yourself, it's okay. Like, I'm just gonna go over there. And the only time I ever got like to the point where I was like despondent about the game was when I was not listening to my own advice, when I was beating my head against a boss because I just wanted to get by the boss, and what I really need to do was just step away for a little while, go do something else, come back and get at it with a fresh thought. And the other thing, a new build. The game lets you go. The game doesn't hook you into one thing. At a certain point, you get an item in a way to respec your character. So if you found an item or something 30 hours into the game that you really want to use, but you've been putting all your points into something that doesn't correspond with that item, you can now switch up everything that you do to use that item. And that freedom is just like, is great. And it allows people to experience all these things that only From lovers or people who play the game a few times ever really got out of them, which I think is just great. Yeah.
They should. In a way, I wish they just let you have just straight co-op if you wanted it. Because you can brute force it in co-op. Like, you could just be like, all right, co-op this area. We were in a new area. Co-op that area. Co-op the next area. So you can do it.
Yeah.
But it would be just cool if you could just like be like, yeah, this is like, whatever. If you want to do it, go ahead.
Yeah.
Because like it's like weird because they will let you do it, but you have to just work at it.
Yeah, you put a little work in.
Something else. Yeah. Like I have a friend who's playing this game strictly in co-op.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever play by himself. He just summons to his our friend Nick, and he the two of them are just playing the game every area together. Mm-hmm. Nick goes into my friend Laz's world every area, and they're playing it that way, and that's cool. I just wish they would let them do that like with a little less hassle. Yeah. But I'll say one other thing about the game that I really love is just the summons. Mm-hmm. Like to me, that was the one thing that really changed the game the most, other than it being open world, is having the ability to just summon like a magical person to fight with you. Like that changed boss fights Like there are tons of boss fights where it's just like, nope, I'm just summoning my guy and we're going to do this together. And like that took a lot of the frustration away. And I don't think it makes it, it certainly doesn't by any chance make it a piece of cake. There are tons of boss fights where I would summon somebody and they would be fighting a person that I left behind outside the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, thank you for being useless.
Or they just stand there and eat shit from the boss. Like they just like the boss has like an area of effect attack and they just stand in the middle of it and just take all the damage. And you're like, will you just please walk away?
Please just like there would be times where the boss is literally hunting me and I'm like, do anything.
Yeah.
Draw aggro. Hit him once. Do something. And it wouldn't happen. But that feeling of like going into like a big area and then seeing the summon available sign like pop up on your screen, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Either I'm walking into a boss fight or I'm walking into an area where there's going to be a lot of enemies. Like, and if I needed it, that person was there, or that, you know, that NPC was there to fight with me. And that was really cool.
Yeah. And those things are another thing, which like as then kind of goes to that point of like giving you space to make the game as difficult or give you as many assists as you want to take, right, from the game. And I think From's always done that, but they haven't done it in a way this well before. This is definitely like the culmination, I think, of all of these years of design, as far as just like unlocking all of the stuff that they do so well and bringing it to a place where it still has that difficulty and you can still manage how, because you could go in, you could do a soul level 1 run and not summon anything and give yourself that challenge, or you can, you know, spend, you know, 50 hours leveling up before you ever go fight the first major boss in the game and run them over because you're you're way over level, but you can do that for yourself. And I think that is what's so great about what this game allows you to do. There's still, like, when I think back on these games, like, Bloodborne probably is still the one that I would say is my favorite, only because the vibes and the lore, and also I just like the feeling of Bloodborne's, like, when you get into a lot of those boss fights, you feel like you're like in a one-on-one battle of will with that boss, you know, and this, you could give yourself that, but this game is not really built that same way. And so I really enjoy that about Bloodborne, but this, like, I think if anyone said to me like, oh, I really want to try one of those Souls games, like, of course this would be the one where I would say you should play Elden Ring. You should play Elden Ring, because I think truly if you're curious and you have enough patience just to learn how From does things differently than some other games, I think anybody can enjoy this. You know, anybody who plays games can enjoy this game. So I really truly think that. Okay, that's enough about Elden Ring for now. Much more to come when we do our Wayfinders episode. Justin, tell me about the Steam Deck.
It's big. It's real big. I have it right here behind me. This is a visual cue for an audio podcast. But yeah, so here's the Steam Deck. Waiting for it to show up
I can see myself in it
on YouTube. Oh yeah, look at you.
It's gonna be delayed,
so
but there
this
you
is
go.
like
There it is.
This is my favorite device on the planet right now. I absolutely adore this thing. I am not much of a handheld gamer. I never have been. I like to think that I like playing Switch games, but never handheld that, as it turns out, because I think is just too. After holding this, I held an OLED Switch the other day, and I was like, "This is a child's toy. This is so flimsy and small, and it is made for small people." Yeah, so I got lucky and got one in Wave 1, which was I got mine like a month after it came out, and you know, it was one of those like things where it's just like, am I really going to use this thing? Talk myself into it. I talked you into it. We talked each other into it, and I got it, and I fucking love the thing to death. It's a little hard for me to play right now because every day my hand gets a little bit stronger from the surgery, and holding a controller is much easier than holding up one end of a Steam Deck because it's like a brick.
Yeah.
But it's getting better every day. And I mean, it is as advertised. It is a miniature PC. So I am just, look, I'm not one to really mess around with complicated systems or anything like that. So I have not really installed anything on this thing. I will wait for smarter people to get their hands on it and really make it easy. I look what it would take to install. There's a way that you can get the Xbox Game Pass through xCloud running if you install Microsoft Edge on this thing. And like there is like Microsoft and Steam came together to really make it kind of simple. And I looked at the instructions and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'll just wait till Game Pass comes to Steam because I'm sure that'll happen one day. But I booted the thing up. I signed into Steam. I thought the UI was a little bit clunky to start, but it just turns out there was a reason for that. For some reason, there was some sort of glitch when you were trying to install Chrome on the thing that would like really chug down the system and make it where you couldn't download anything. So it took me a little while to figure that out. And once I did, I stopped trying to download Chrome until they fixed it, which they already have.
Okay.
And I went through my library and it shows you all the games that are deck verified, which means they will run absolutely perfectly on Steam Deck. And out of my library, I think there was about 20 or 30 games that were just totally deck verified. And they're the games that you're thinking would think of something like Rogue Legacy 2, Portal 2, other games like that. Here, let me just turn the damn thing on. I'll tell you. And then you go to the store, and the store is like a kind of different version of the Steam OS. So it opens up to what looks like a web page, and it's like these games are all deck verified. There is like a Steam Deck store, and everything on that page and in that tab will run perfectly on the deck. And then there are other games where it is they'll say unknown or will work in some way. There'll be a yellow icon, and it's like this game will work, but it might require a little bit of work on your part. So not every instance of the game will work absolutely flawlessly. You might have to use the touch screen to do something that you would normally use a mouse for. It'll work, but it's not like it's going to just work completely perfectly with the joysticks.
Or those little games that are just little touch pads too, right? You can use.
Yeah. So it opens up and basically, again, another visual cue for everybody. Here is your homepage. It's a little bit hard to see with everything on my screen. It's actually not working out that well.
It's like the reflection that's getting you. You should have got that glare resistant screen, Justin. Spent the extra $100 and got that glare resistant screen.
$100 I ended up getting the one the middle version, which was $550. I think that for me that was the right call because I've already pretty much filled up this hard drive.
Apparently using the micros is totally good. Apparently it loads really fast off of it.
Yeah.
All the technical reviews I've seen of it are shocked at how good the micro SD card loading is.
It is shocking how well this thing works, considering it's coming from Valve, who has not really put out hardware before like this. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are things about it that could be better. I think the battery life, obviously, is going to be how you do it. How you use this thing. I loaded up Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 looks and plays beautifully. As you mentioned, it should. It's about a 6-year-old game, but it runs at a smooth 60 frames a second. I think the screen is the most impressive thing about this thing. It's not an OLED screen, but it looks nice. The colors are very vivid. The reflections, unless you're literally trying to hold it up to a camera like I was just doing, or playing in the sun, I think the reflections are fine. I've been playing a bunch of things on this thing. I downloaded and bought Ollie Ollie World. I was looking in the store just for things to play. Let me just see what is on here. Okay, so if you go to your library on this thing, it'll tell you, I currently have 74 Steam games. And it'll say great on deck, and it will give me a number. So great on deck, 27 games are verified. And then if you go to your games, every single one will be supported, unsupported, or in that middle ground where it's going to take just a tiny bit of work. Bastion, for instance, will take a little bit of work to get this thing running. How?
I wonder why.
Why, right? It doesn't make sense.
I think some of it is. I think some of that too is just because, developers might not have just they might have just reviewed the game and confirmed it to work on deck. You know, so I think some of those like non-verified but will work are just because certain games just haven't been run through the checks, you know, that have to get
That's
done.
the thing is like this one has been run through the check though.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the thing.
Interesting.
So like unsupported, like there'll be a question mark if they don't know. But when there's this like little dot with an I, here, let's see what it says. Game info. Hang on.
Because it's a
Steam
controller
Deck
game.
compatibility. So it's playable. That's the thing. That's the other one. So there's verified,
Okay.
playable, unsupported, and unknown.
Okay.
Playable means like it's going to require a little bit of fudging on your part to do something. So like Dorfromantic is like a tile-based game, right? It works perfectly fine on this thing, but it's going to break your brain a little bit in the beginning because you're going to have to use the controls in like a different way. And I think at some point you might have to use the touchscreen for something to like either hit start or hit a menu button. So it's not like it'll work the same way you would if it had a controller. The verified games are like, it is seamless between controller and this thing. Like you don't have to do anything special.
Right.
With the playable ones, you have to do something just a tiny bit different, but it's totally fine. But then again, there are, for instances, where unsupported games work totally fine. Like, I know I was looking at the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, right? That game is unsupported on Steam. But yeah, Jeff Grubb from GamesBeat says the game runs perfectly. There's like one thing in the menus that doesn't work. And if this one tiny thing doesn't work, they might list it as unsupported. Now, to be safe and to be clear, there are plenty of games that do not work on this thing at all. Halo the Master Chief Collection launches to a black screen. It just does not launch, and that's because of like anti-cheat stuff.
Yeah, the anti-cheat stuff. Yeah.
So they're working on solutions for those things, and this thing is going to be a runaway hit. Like this device, it's comfortable. It being big. I was wondering, like, you know, how, like, and it's a little bit heavy. Like, how is this going to feel to play? And the answer is like it is everything the Switch to be. The screen is the right size and like it is comfortable to hold and to play with, and it feels sturdy. Like you could throw this thing at somebody and hurt them. So yeah, I ended up picking up, like, just going through the store and was just like, I want to try a game that somebody obviously knew or designed to make the launch of the Steam Deck. And so there was this game that I downloaded called what is it? I think it's called Orbital Bullet. It was like one of the top listed things on there because everyone who got this thing was just like, I want to try something new on the deck. And so it's a roguelike because it's me, and of course. But it reminded me a lot of what's that? Resogun.
Okay.
It's basically this dude with a gun who's running around a circular arena. And he could jump inside and outside of this circular arena. But what was really cool is like when you shoot your bullets, you see the bullets travel around the arena. And then they hit things and you have to like progress on and on and on and on. But it was verified for deck and it was like $11. And like I picked it up and I played like a half hour, 40 minutes of it. Like not a lot, but like ran fine on the deck. And like when you're running an indie game like that, or like I'm playing Vampire Survivors a ton. Like I might get 8 hours of battery life with Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not a system intensive game. There are a lot of particle effects happening on the screen at all times, but like, it's not like I'm trying to run like what would Titanfall or an Elden Ring, for instance. Elden Ring will probably burn out the battery on this thing in 2 hours.
Yeah, I think same Jeff Grubb said, I think 2.5 hours, depending on what you like set the frame rate at and the other stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, what it's really cool is it really gives you the options to dial down that stuff as much as you want. Like, how much vibration do you want? What do you want to lock the frame rate at? Like, it'll give you the options to push this thing further and further battery-wise if you want to. But again, you could play Elden Ring in the car. Or, you know, on an airplane. Like, granted, it's not going to last very long. I would say, like, you know, probably you might, at best, you might get 3.5 hours out of this thing. If you really, like, tone down a lot of the stuff, maybe you get 3 hours, right? But you're still playing Elden Ring outside. Like, that's really cool. Like, I was playing Titanfall on a handheld. Like, to me, that's awesome. And it played and ran great. So for me, it's been awesome. Like, before I had the surgery, I was just, like, downstairs in the family room with the kids. They were running around or whatever, and I was sitting there playing Ollie World or Vampire Survivors or just installing stuff. I ran that desk job game that they came out with, which kind of is It is a kind of like a demo of what the capabilities of the Steam Deck
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
and so it's obviously, but it's in the Portal universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a half-hour little game, and they run you through everything that the deck can do, from using like tilt controls and like I forget what they call it with in Splatoon when you use the controller to actually aim. It's not like
It's motion controls. I mean, it's still motion, like
it's like
gyro.
I guess
Yeah,
it's like a motion.
it's gyro
Yeah, maybe
controls.
like gyro aiming.
Yeah.
There's things like that, and they show the rumble, the touchscreen, all that stuff, and like I thought it was extremely well written. It made me download Portal 2 because I want to like rerun through that. Like Cave Johnson is all over this thing. So yeah, I think the Steam Deck is really freaking rad.
They only pull out Portal whenever they're doing like these demos for like their new hardware. They're just make a fucking Portal game, guys, please.
I really would love for them to do that, but it's great. I'm shocked how much I like the thing. Because coming into it, I was like, it's a video game console. Of course, I'm going to pick it up and play with it, but I'm playing with it a lot more than I thought I would. So
nice.
It's good stuff. And Vampire Survivors is awesome. Please buy
it. I've heard nothing but great things. It's a roguelike, right? Like you would consider it that?
So it's a roguelike. I mean, but it's like, it's almost hard to put it in the same vein as something like Hades or Dead Cells or Rogue Legacy 2. It's a bullet hell roguelike, but you're the bullet. So you are a character, like you are a tiny little pixelated character, and you're running around a screen, and there are, increasing and increasing enemies on the screen. And as you kill them, they drop gems, and then you pick up the gems to increase your strength. And every time you level up, you get 3 options to get something. Maybe it's an item that homes to them. Maybe it's you throw a bunch of axes. And then as you get those items and you level up again, sometimes you get the option to make that ability better. And sometimes you get the option to like pick another ability to stack on top of it. So it's in early access right now. The game is normally $3. That's not its sale price. It is normally $3. Yeah. Right now it's on sale for like $2.56. I have been buying it and just gifting it to people. Like a friend of ours, Lanny, got her Steam Deck today. She got the email for it today, and it was just like instantly add to cart and sent to her because it was like, you need to play this on your deck. And then I was like, I'm thinking of other people who don't have this thing yet, and I was just sending it to them. But the idea in early access is there are like 5 or 6 stages, and the goal is to survive for a half hour. And as you play, you end up getting coins in your run, and the coins you can spend to give yourself on your next run more health or a shield or things like that. And you could level those things up more. And it's just at a certain point you become like a machine of death, like just a death machine. Like you're shooting lightning bolts all over the screen and like axes and knives and like flames, and there's like floating Bibles around you and like all this stuff. And you're like, I'm never going to die. And then like the next time the enemies reset, there are thousands and thousands of enemies converging on you at once. And all these things that you have are on cooldowns. And you could easily be like, I'm on top of the world. And then at 27 minutes, just lose everything. And the game's getting updated a lot. So it's a roguelike. So I'm always going to like instantly gravitate towards it. But this one is just like, I think it's perfect for the deck. Like absolutely perfect, because it's just like I sit down for at most a half hour. And if I beat this, great. And if not, like, all right, I'll pick it up and try it again in a little bit. So yeah, it's really cool. And again, $3.
Yeah, $3. Nice. Very, very nice. I wanted to, before we wrap this up, Justin, I wanted to read an email that I shared with you earlier today that I got from a PR person. The subject of this email is new stats. Everybody hates Elden Ring. Hi, Bobby. Elden Ring is 5 times more likely to be searched than any other game. But new data shows massive rage quitting and opting for other MMOs such as Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Can I send you more insights that we've researched? P.S. We don't work for Gearbox.
So this email was floating around today because I saw Greg Miller retweet it. and then I saw other people who said yes, and it looked like it got the insights.
Uh-huh.
Like I think I was seeing other like verified people sharing screens, and I'm like, I don't know if these are like the insights, but it was like a graph or whatever, and like I don't think Tiny Tina had ever like risen above.
Yeah.
It got off the ground as far as popularity goes.
Compared to Elden Ring, it was like a Google Trends like chart that someone shared. That someone shared, like a search trend. I just love the line, are opting for other MMOs such as Tiny Tina Wonderlands. Tiny Tina's Wonderland. It's not an MMO, and neither is Elden Ring. Neither is Elden Ring. I saw Greg Miller's tweet, and he just said, oh, yes, please, is what his answer was to the email. Like, please send me these stats. I sent it to Justin. He was like, what is this? And I was like, I just get random PR emails from people because of the old Talking Comics like email. So I just get like a lot of weird PR emails. Most of them aren't like that. Most of them are like are much more like designed. Like you can tell they were made in like MailChimp or one of those like, you know, Constant Contact. And they're like a bulk email that people send out. And I'm sure this is a bulk email. Obviously it was, but it's not designed at all. There's no logos on it. There's no like, there's no pictures included. It's just like a very simple text email. It's really funny. But yeah. So that's it. We played a ton of Elden Ring. We talked about that. Justin's loving his Steam Deck. We talked about that. Vampire Survivors, $3. Even if you don't have a deck, you can get that on Steam right now, and I'm sure eventually will make its way to consoles at some point or another. Justin, what do you think you're going to play next, just before we get out of here?
I have played about 5 hours of Tunic.
Okay.
You
played 5 hours of Tunic?
Yeah, I'm at 5 hours so far, so I only got I don't have much left.
Yeah, the game is not that long.
If we're no, I think it's like, I don't know, like 12 to 15 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you compare it to something like Elden Ring, I was having a conversation with somebody when I was getting close to the end, and I was like, I think I'm like 15 to 20 hours away. I'm like right there, and they were like, "What? That's a lot of time." I was like, "Not really. It's not in
comparison to the rest of the game.
Not comparison. No."
Funny for me. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
I was gonna say I put out a poll on Twitter, like, what should I play next? Should I finish Forbidden West? Should I start the Lego Star Wars game or Tunic? One person voted for Tunic, and that was enough for me.
I voted for Lego Star Wars.
Go ahead and start that. I really want to play that.
Did you get it? Did you buy it already?
I haven't bought it. I've been holding out. You know what happens when you get surgery and can't work and don't make money because you're not working is it's hard to buy video games.
Yes, that's probably true.
You can't actually justify buying right now.
Yes, that's
so I'm waiting. I'm waiting a little bit, maybe that for it to come down in price. I mean, it's not like I don't have other things to play right now. Right. I do. Like, I really wanted to start Tunic, and I want to finish Forbidden West. But the idea of rolling from one open world game into another, I was like, I need a palate cleanser. And so instead, I went from one difficult game to another.
One obtuse difficult game to another obtuse difficult game.
I think Tunic 5 hours in is, I mean, lovely. It looks lovely. It sounds lovely. It's very cute and adorable. And it is filled to the brim with like really cool little aha moments. And like, just like an Elden Ring, like, oh, there is a shortcut here I had no idea about. That's awesome. It's also pretty damn hard at times. And it doesn't look like it would be, but it can be. I think that's been a big topic with that game is like, you should just play that. Most people are saying you should play that game with the difficulty just turned all the way down. Yeah. Make it no fail mode. So that way you can enjoy the parts about that game that are really great, like the puzzles and the world design and the music and all that stuff. I'm not there yet, but I'm about 5 hours in and I'm really enjoying it. It's a great game. It's like the inverse of Death's Door, which looks like it would be like horribly punishing. And ends up being like, there are hard parts of Death's Door, but it's like, it's a pretty like, you can pretty just move through Death's Door, like, pretty quickly. And Tunic looks like it would be, it's this nice little like twee indie game that's like, oh, look at the pretty world and everything. Look at my cute little fox. And it's like, that one's the one that's like, no, this is Dark Souls. Like, so. I mean, not obviously as hard as Dark Souls so far, but it does all the things that Dark Souls does, which doesn't tell you anything. Everything is in a different language. and it's up for you to really figure it out. Like figuring out how to upgrade myself was I was on a call with Bobby and Andy and I was like, holy shit, I just figured it out. Like, and I was like, there was no hint about it. I felt really smart for figuring it out. I'll say one thing the game does really cool, like just really, really cool, is you are constantly rolling around and finding collectibles, these collectibles in the world, which turn out to be the like video game manual.
Yeah.
And it has like this really beautifully hand-drawn like video game manual where half of the page is in a language you don't understand and some of it is in English and then some of it is pictures that are hand drawn. And if you look at the pictures, you kind of can figure out what the language is trying to tell you. And sometimes they're maps of like the different areas, and sometimes it's like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. And sometimes they're like really cool hints that if you stare at long enough, you start figuring out. Like, really cool thing. The game does that a lot and I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So yeah,
awesome.
That's what I'm playing next.
Tunic. Tunic is definitely an option for me. That's definitely sitting there. I want to check out Weird West at least. I want to see what that's all about. Memoir Blue is also on Game Pass. I want to check that out. And that game Norco, that like adventure game, which is getting a lot of really good buzz, is on PC Game Pass. So I've got all of that stuff to play. I say that while I'm probably just going to like poke and prod at Elden Ring more as we go. Hi, Lanny, the aforementioned Lanny, new Steam Deck owner Lanny has joined the chat.
Hello, friends.
Yeah, so that's on my radar. There's stuff I want to play. Like I would like to play Sifu. I'd like to give Sifu a try, but again, like going from really hard game to really hard game is not really what I'm looking to do at the moment. There's a big part of me that even though people say that it's like kind of basic and kind of mindless, that really wants to still play Ghostwire Tokyo, because I feel like that's the kind of game that like I could vibe with right now after playing Elden Ring for so long. Kind of like the way I beat Rage 2 a couple of years ago.
I forgot you did that.
Yeah, and Lego Star Wars. I do want to play Lego Star Wars. I wish there was online co-op in Lego Star Wars.
I don't know why there's not.
I mean, I guess you could always do the thing where one of us bought it and we could like remote play on PS4 or PS5. Sorry.
True.
We could definitely do that. And like I am interested in playing once Andy's done with Elden Ring, us playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I hear that a lot of people are leaving Elden Ring to go play Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
It's the hot new MMO.
It's the hot new MMO. I would like to play, because I have like a mindless co-op shooter. It doesn't sound like a bad thing right now. Something I don't have to think about.
It actually sounds kind of nice.
And I will say, Justin said before, I was on a call with Andy and Bobby. We were in an Xbox party. We weren't like having a Zoom business meeting or...
I don't know. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say at all.
If Kirby as well, I definitely want to play Kirby. I just have to. I don't want to spend any money right now, so I'm looking more towards the Game Pass side.
I have good news for you: is I can lend you it because Jorah beat it already.
Oh, nice. I do want to play Kirby.
So I have that as well that I could play, but yeah, I could drop that off at your house this week.
Nice.
As soon as I get someone to drive me to your house, because I'm still not.
I could drive to your house. I could drive to your house.
You could. You know what? You could.
I could do that. I could do that
this weekend.
Yeah, I will. If Desmond was into Star Wars, or playing those games at all, I would have bought that game already. But he just isn't like in that zone yet. Just a side note. I keep getting distracted and keep moving. The podcast keeps lasting longer than I intended it to. But so, my son watches YouTube, a lot of YouTubers. He watches like kids YouTubers. There's this YouTuber called Lankybox. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before. They are extremely annoying, but they have extremely popular content. Like he puts them on and they scream a lot and say bro a lot, and I'm just like, I can't. I was like, you have to watch this on your tablet. You can't watch this on the TV. But through him and some other people, he gets exposed to like these like the characters that inhabit like a lot of these like horror games, like Five Nights at Freddy's, stuff like that. Because those characters are like
this story. This story is interesting.
Ubiquitous, right? And the story is two-pronged. So there's another one of these games called Poppy's Playtime, which is like this same kind of deal. You're going through an area, you're kind of running away, and they're like scary, what should be like nice looking things, like, but they're really, really scary. And the game is super popular. And he would like see like the toys or whatever, and it's like this really, I sent Justin a picture of the thing. It's like this blue, like stuffed creature, but when he opens his mouth, he has like huge rows of like sharp knife-sized teeth.
It's legitimately upsetting.
Yes. Doesn't bother my son at all. To the point where I was like, oh well, he just watches these people like talk about it, right? They don't play the game. They just like do the toys and they make like, oh, look at these pictures, or whatever. He's now watched the actual game being played, as well as watched some Five Nights at Freddy's being played. He fell asleep tonight watching just a montage of jump scare moments in the Five Nights at Freddy's games. Not an ounce of fear. Like, laughing most of the time. And I'm like, doesn't this creep you out? And he goes, no, Daddy. I am very brave when it comes to creepy things, is what he tells me.
Tell him the truth.
Like, his cousin, who he spends a lot of time with, Desmond's not allowed to talk about the game around his cousin because his cousin gets so freaked out by Desmond just talking about the game. And his cousin's a year older than he is. So it's really, really funny. The second part of this really fast is that, so Squid Game has become very popular in like the Roblox sort of world. There's a lot of like sanitized versions of the Squid Game games in Roblox, which make their way into these YouTubers and then they make their way in front of my child's face, right? So he's never seen like any of like he's never seen a frame of footage of actual Squid Game, but he knows what Squid Game is. And the other day he asked my wife, he goes, Mommy, which Squid Game is first? And I was like, why do you know? I'm not talking about this. Like, we're not talking about Squid Game. He goes, is it red light, green light? Is red light, green light the first Squid Game?
It is.
And she goes, yes. And he goes, okay, thank you. And he walks out of the room. And then he comes back in later and he goes, okay, what game is first? The sugar game or the glass bridge? And she's like, Jasmine, I don't want to talk about this stuff.
If you haven't seen Squid Game, these are horrifying things.
Yes. And then the other day, I haven't even told you this. The other day, he comes into the bedroom, our bedroom, and he was like, oh, I just really wish I could watch Squid Game. And we're like, no, absolutely not. No. And he had like a temper tantrum, like screaming, crying, like, like, I'm never going to talk to you again. And like walked out of the room.
Your son is not afraid of anything, and my son is just a content machine.
Your son is a content machine. I've watched all your son's videos.
A true friend, you are a true friend, because I could barely make it through the videos. I'm like, A, can you put on a pair of pants? B, can you keep your brother who's just running around in his underwear out of the scene, which he loves to do. He's like, Finn, get out of here, and shoves Finn out of the way. But my favorite thing that Jorah does, who has his own YouTube channel, is he will, in the middle of his thing, stop and be like, this video is brought to you by Taco Bell and the new cheesy gordita crunch. He does advertisements in the middle of his videos. And I'm like, what, where did your innocence go? My sponsor this week is Taco Bell, as he's eating Taco Bell.
That's so funny.
You don't have to practice that.
There was one where he had one of his friends on speaker on whatever on his phone, and they were playing some game together. That was really funny. There was a video where I love that your son also has YouTube Shorts. Like, he makes content for YouTube Shorts and puts it up. One of which was just him dancing in your kitchen, which was hilarious.
Yep.
To Dance Monkey. And one where he hid in a box or got trapped in a box by Finn, and the other one where it was the reverse of that. like their toy box or
I get
whatever it
revenge,
was.
but he names the videos like with like good SEO, like
Yeah.
I get revenge on my brother.
Yeah.
What?
Hey, George, you want to
Why
come
are you
write
so much better at this than I
our
am?
titles and descriptions for us?
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. I see when his videos pop up because I'm subscribed to him. So when I do my YouTubing in the morning, I see when a new video has popped up. Clickbait King, is what Lenny says. So yeah, so that's what the other thing. The other thing is he just kind of he knows it, but like my nephew, it was like, oh, like, do you know any YouTubers? Is what he said to me, and I said, well, I do stuff on YouTube, and he goes, you do stuff on YouTube? I was like,
We're very popular.
We're very popular, but because he was using this thing called this thing called the Akinator, which is like this like app where you can like it's supposed to be able to guess the person that you're thinking of by answering your question. Like it asks you a question: is this real? Or whatever. And they were like they wanted to do us, and I was like, we're not going to show up. Like we're not going to show up. We're not Jacksepticeye. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's show. Please remember to like if you're watching the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the video. If you're listening on your podcast platform of choice, please rate us and review us. Check out our other content on the channel right now. We've got our From Software tier list that's up right now. We got a Bloodborne one coming as well. Another tier list of that. We've also got Sky. That's with our new contributor Luminous Sky. She also recorded her own video of her reacting to these things they call the chariot dungeons in Elden Ring.
Those things.
So that video will be up as well. And then I think next week we're going to do the lore video for Elden. The first lore video for Elden Ring. So got a lot of stuff coming up. Someday soon, when Justin's arm is better, we'll get back on that Resident Evil train. I can't wait to see you get back having learned those controls again.
Oh god.
In that game. Follow us on Twitter at Misadventureland. No A in land. And yeah, that's it. So until next time, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you to everyone who is watching and listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.
These two great friends agree a lot, but when they don't, then the shit gets hot. Though there's C+ in their gameplay,